Remember Commander Jonathan from that one good One Piece filler arc? Well, he actually got closer to stopping the Straw Hats more than you think. He used the 6 plans to try and stop them, and if it wasn't for another character, he would have definitely done their money more than other villains thanks to the mindset of the Fisher. Someone who's patient, humble, and cares for his men. He's an underrated tactical genius. Why, you should think so too. And I'm going to show you as Admiral of the G-8 Marine base in the G-8 One Piece filler arc. But don't let hearing filler make you think it's a bad arc or anything. Most people and I consider it to be filler arcs and even thought it was canon at first before I learned. It takes place just after the Straw Hats fell from Skypiea and into Marine base. It was filler. I even consider it to be better than Long Ring Longland. He's so smart and intelligent that he's favored in canon by Kainu. If you don't know, that's an admiral, by the way. One of the tippy top people in the verse. Out of the 6 plans that he did to them that I'm going to cover, half of them he would have definitely caught the Straw Hats at the time if it wasn't for a guy named Inspector Shepard. He's so tactical, or as Usopp calls him, Condoriano. He thinks of what the Strats will do before they even do it. So join me in dissecting the strategic, peace-loving commander of Neverone, Commander Jonathan. In the beginning of the arc, we see Marines mention that there's a ship that looks like it fell from the sky.
Sometimes foreshadowing is relatively obvious.
The first point I'm going to talk about is Jonathan's deduction and observational skills. And we'll get to see the perspective of the Marines in the beginning, which is rare. Immediately get a feel of how rusty and unprepared they are for an intrusion into the base, which becomes a relevant point throughout the rest of the arc. We get to see Jonathan's introduction when he's fishing, when he later comments about how fishing at night wasn't a waste, thanks to him getting to see the Straw Hats fall from the sky, which becomes a piece of his chessboard later. We get to see Jonathan's observational skills demonstrated throughout the show, and he's able to figure out that there is a cook, a doctor, and a historian based on the new cooking ware and the new books. Him figuring all this out gives us a cool surprise, since when we see him fishing, he gives us the vibe of being just a guy fishing who is laid back and not to take him seriously at first. Next, I'm going to talk about an important trait Jonathan shows in this episode, his constant consideration of his men. Nearing the end of the episode, we see him giving the order that it's still a ghost ship, since he knows that they're dealing with infamous pirates and their base isn't equipped with the right men to deal with them. Nearing the end of the episode, we see him giving the order that it's still a ghost ship, since he knows that they're dealing with the infamous Straw Hat pirates and the base isn't equipped with the right men to deal with them. He knows it would only cause panic and confusion that would benefit the pirates. He makes the move to lock down the base and assemble a team, since both the pirates and their vision is restricted at night. He knows the pirates would think of this too and try to blend in with their uniforms. Now let's talk about how Jonathan uses tactics to capture most of the Straw Hats. Throughout the arc, we see Jonathan use the chessboard to demonstrate his thoughts and processes, and tactically plan his next move. Jonathan's right-hand man, Joseph, I think his name was, doesn't want to let a ship of injured men come into the base out of fear of the Straw Hats escaping. But Jonathan shows his counter to nature by letting them in. The Straw Hats were able to blend in since there were 2 brothers who were expected to show up as cooks. So Sanji and Luffy take their place. Sanji shows the cooks the value of using scraps and that one man's trash is another man's treasure. He shows how good he is at using their scraps to make a better meal. It doesn't matter how much you spend, you shouldn't waste what you get. They try to show off and were picky about the ingredients. Next, Chopper's able to blend in as a doctor to help the patients who came from the ship. I love when we get to see the Straw Hats do their specialties, things that they're good at. Something that is different is we get to see Chopper show agency and go against Nami, valuing his ideals over survival. Jonathan is able to get information about an unknown doctor in the medical ward, and he meets Luffy in the kitchen later since he knows the pirates would go to the dining hall for grub. But for now, his next move is to look where it's obvious, since he knows some pirates will find hiding cowardly and use his patience to capture Zoro. The next episode is when Jonathan is able to deduce all the members who appeared. We see in the next episode, Robin and Usopp have an argument about the right way to go about getting information. Robin has the right idea about getting information first when you're in enemy territory, and they need to learn more before they can escape with the ship. Usopp gets mad at her and goes off on his own, but getting knowledge pays off for Robin when she spies on Major Shepard. Next, we'll get a nice scene between Jonathan and his wife, showing a healthy couple relationship that we never see in One Piece. Write and voice after my videos with a character named Major Shepard, which is funny. But sorry for the shameless plug. While I'm at it, subscribe for the future analysis of I will have a video out later called The Philosophy After Show, where I cover the themes mentioned throughout the arc, so stay tuned. Robin knocks him out and uses his disguise to get more information that will help them escape at the end of the last second. Usopp feels terribly to get disguised, pretending to be Conde Rihanna, but Robin says she doesn't know him, and so it's pretty funny. They say it was so it could be with Zoro for his safety, but I think she was still a little annoyed at what he said to her earlier. I love the scene where Jonathan and Luffy meet. It's so hilarious where Luffy takes his meatballs, and when they meet, they have a sense of respect for each other, even though they never actually physically fight. Jonathan is able to then deduce who all the Straw Hats are and is confident that he can get them since he already got 2 members already. And Luffy just called him Fortress Guy as well as not some insult like other villains, showing how they respect each other. The next part shows Jonathan's main values of patience and strategy, and we get to see his plan B. We get to see Robin read about the base, how in time from the ships can enter and can't leave. Then they have a funny moment in the prison where Shepard unites with his crew. It's funny that the Straw Hats are only able to escape thanks to this guy. Jonathan then starts plan B. He knows they're trying to find the brig, so he sets a trap. By leaving the area empty, he knows it's a battle of wits and Luffy is out of his league. Next, we see the old man talk to Usopp about the person in the mist and about how badly the ship needs repairs, which foreshadows what happens in canon. The Straw Hats escape with the tools. The Straw Hats are able to escape with tools that they got in the last arc, going out of the way to keep the story connected to the canon. Instead of Jonathan getting annoyed by them breaking out like other villains, he has patience, knowing he has future opportunities, just like a true fisher. Next, we'll have Plan C, where this is going to be one of the closest times that they get caught by Jonathan, where he lures them into another trap. Luffy takes the idea of escape being impossible as a challenge. In Plan C, Jonathan knows more fighting will give more injuries to his men and cause more damage. He focuses on where they will go rather than where they might go. He lures them to cross the bridge, sending a unit that can slow them down. The question of separating the art from the artist is brought up when Jessica doesn't want to use Sanji's recipes when she learns he's a pirate. The Dr. Kobato learns that Chopper is actually a pirate and still decides to help him. So that answers the question about what the show thinks about it. It's an interesting contrast from Jessica who couldn't separate the bias from the person. By the end of the episode, it's all going according to Jonathan's plan. Next, you'll see how Jonathan reels them back into the base after they escape in Plan D. Once again, love how the Marines in general are a lot more competent than they are in the canon arcs, and the base gives a sense of family in it with everyone working together. Interesting that they use tear gas, which I don't think we see them use in canon, and we see how Jonathan prefers to have their enemies alive to serve justice. He associated recipes with Sanji and took his advice that every ingredient is a vital resource. A good example of how biases affect people. We get a good scene where both sides are scrambling to make the perfect checkmate move. The old man helps them escape. The old man tells the Marines to pay more attention to innocent lives. Robin then comes in clutch, getting a map of the fortress. The King of 40's chest as usual. Once again, love that Jonathan has patience and another trick up his sleeve. Plan D, he has the gate closed and took the cannonballs, but Luffy just deflected the cannons back at the gate to escape. But Jonathan's plan still hasn't failed yet. Since they're pirates, he knows that they'll come back later for their treasure, which of course he leaves in plain sight for them as bait, just like a fisher. Jonathan's next plan is the closest he gets to capturing the Straw Hats, next to his last one that's been foreshadowed from the start. In Plan E, Jonathan counted on the fact that the Straw Hats were going back for the gold like any pirate. He knows that they have a map of the base so he can lure them into the treasure vault. So he knows he has another opportunity to get them when they try to get into the vault. He knows he just needs a bit more patience. Robin shows how knowing your enemy is important by saying since the base was shrinking, they can go to an unused dock. Then Jessica learns it's their job to feed their soldiers with good food. She swallows her pride and uses Sanji's recipes. He was a cook in their kitchen and knew it was important to satisfy the people eating their food. Interestingly, Nami sets aside the majority of money to get the ship fixed and not to use it herself. A nice character growth moment for her. Then they reminisce about the past with the Mary, and we hear the music that always gets to me. I Didn't Die partner music too. If you know, you know. I like that they make an emotional reason for them to get the gold rather than just because. Getting the ship right who appears later. So they decide to disguise the ship to look like the Marine vessel. Usopp makes a plan for them to split into 2 teams, with Sanji and Nami going after the waiver. Jonathan's able to get the motive of the inspector and wanting to shut the place down. And get the fame for taking down the Straw Hats for himself when he asks if he wants to be involved. Shepard calls Jonathan a peace addict hedgehog, which that doesn't make sense to me since Marines are supposed to be striving for peace. To me, Shepard is full of arrogance and greed that ironically causes his own downfall. Not sure if I will have that in the same video as the analysis or in their own separate videos. For this, I will keep it in its own video for me to hopefully do better with a shorter video in the algorithm. Thanks for watching this already long video, by the way. Jonathan tries to get the heat off of the Marines that he ordered to lock Major Shepard up since it was his order. Jonathan knows that the Straw Hats will go where they want and doesn't want to mobilize the new recruits, so he has the new recruits just stand on surveillance and not act. The Straw Hats go into a safe that's empty and is surrounded. He gets the Straw Hats in one fell swoop. In the next episode, we get to see how close the Straw Hats get to getting caught again. I think this early on they may have Plan F, foreshadowed 9 p.m. net, Fangs of Navarone. Jonathan mentions that Shepard needs to mention in his report how he got in their way, and this is when Shepard mentions that he's favored by Kainu. Fisherman proceeds to thank them for testing their base and uniting the base together and getting off the hook a few times. He knows they can catch them just like any other fish, it just takes a bit of patience, and they will. He's waiting for the 9 p.m. net, knowing they're as good as caught. The Straw Hats realize there's another trap since the Marine ships aren't firing. They eventually get caught in the fisherman's net. Even though the Straw Hats cause so much trouble, Jonathan gives them props and respect before telling them it's checkmate and that they put up a good fight. He said he would make a deal to let his crew go if he just got Luffy and Zoro, and says he would treat them with the utmost respect. Something weird to me is to escape. They want to use the impact dial and have Usopp do it since he's the owner. I get his character doing brave things, but Luffy should have done it since he's rubber, but whatever. That says something if that's my only real complaint about this arc. Of course, everyone thinks that the Straw Hats can't escape, but Jonathan knows otherwise. Knowing that the Straw Hats defied their expectations, he has one last piece left, expecting them to use the sky to escape. Jonathan guesses correctly, but as they escape, Jonathan aims the cannons at the octopus to try and get them alive, once again putting in a concerted effort to catch the Straw Hats alive. Personally, he feels like one of the most moral and honorable Marines next to Fujitora to me. He did that earlier when they were trying to make a break for the ship. I feel when the cannons were aiming at them, that was the second time that they would have definitely been caught in the fisherman's net if it wasn't for Shepard being full of greed to want to defeat the Straw Hats himself. Shepard shoots the cannons that would have gotten them. What's interesting here is that the filler character is probably one of the closest any villains got to actually stopping them. The only thing that stopped him was the only unplanned variable who caused a fluke to let them escape. I know less than a handful of others were close too, like Kaido and Crocodile. For the fishermen, they were the catch that got away. When Shepard lore dropped that Jonathan was one of Akainu's favorites, I don't know if that's a good thing or a bad thing. To be honest with Jonathan being thankful the Straw Hats helped him achieve his primary objective. The Straw Hats got the base to work together, and it proved they can repel the Straw Hats, keeping their base alive. Jonathan wonders where Luffy goes next, knowing the road ahead won't be an easy one. We get to see Jonathan later before the Civil War as well, which is cool. If you're like me and love philosophy, watch my video after this, where I go deeper into the topics mentioned throughout the arc, breaking down even the smallest statements, such as the topic that's mentioned in the beginning of living with a glass half full or half empty mindset. And don't forget to watch my after story for the second part of the epilogue of my long-planned, long-running story that I write. I got the idea from the after story Resage did for his D&D series. I will also have cryptic codes and messages in there along with references to my other favorite series like SCP and FNAF. If anyone comments, it would be nice to see if anyone catches the references. One more thing about the after story is in the future I plan to have 2 or 3 languages that come from the occult in there that would be decipherable. That's something I always wanted to do. My next video will be about the Biggering song while I work on a more long-term project for a different video. Until next time, remember, always question, always expand your viewpoints, and try not to be too hypocritical in the process. When you have this philosophy, you can become who you're meant to be, even question the groups you like. Hello, this is the after story that I write, by the way. This is the second part of the prologue, and it's called And the Secrets Stay Hidden.
Why do I look over 40, you say? Well, the reason for that is pretty simple. You see, we do what the Chinese have been doing in the past couple decades, what they call Renquan. You mean, you mean the Chinese else? Stop joking me for sugar. We got no cases of it going on in
any of the states. Well, there's a reason for that. But I fear that if I talk to you plainly, my colleague now, my boss, would be quite, let's just say, irritated, for lack of a better term. Okay, now we're getting somewhere. Who exactly is your boss? You hear door opening. That will be me. About damn time you showed up. I was worried that if you didn't show up, I would have had to say something that would have gotten both you and I in trouble. Sorry about that. I was tied up doing some busy work for MJ12. Oh. Come on, Trevor. Let's get out of here. I got some more work for you to do for me. Taff, Benson, sir. I just have a few more questions to ask. I haven't heard that nickname in a while. Well, it's not a bad one to have anyway. Sorry, PDC, but you're going to have to go back to the Phantom Master to try to get more dirt on us for another interview. Remember Doc 3002. No information is to be permitted to be released by press unless it's given to the DIO first and its narrative is trying to spin before being released to the public. Yeah, I know. I won't forget like I did last time. Then you hear them exiting with papers. Thanks for listening. It'll be interesting if in the next part, it's going to be the first part of chapter 1. It's going to be the first part. And the next one is going to see the first part of the chapter. What's going to be called Out of the Norm into the Abyss. I thought about where there's 3 mini arcs where it's build up, climax, release, build up, climax, release about 3 times in that chapter, and then it goes, and then there's a connection to the next chapter, which starts the first mini arc, and then the second, and etc., and whatnot. So, which will have plenty of Easter eggs and codes and whatnot. And I plan to have 2 or 3 languages that can be decipherable. Comes from the occult. Which would be cool, that like viewers will be able to decipher it and know what the certain characters are saying, which is super cool. It's kind of like the codes in Gravity Falls. It's kind of where I got the idea from. Yeah, thanks. Bye bye.